take you to the comic shop. I'll let you read about Cyclops. I'll have you spending all you got. Jawbreakers is looking hot. Zach.
Hello once again, all you beautiful people in Webtown. Big Legit is here to welcome you to the final day in our long exploration into the origin of your boy Cable. And I will tell you, I am very excited for today because I can go a good 3 months without reading anything featuring any X-Men in it. Definitely 3 months. This has been a long journey, but luckily, you know, I saved some of the best stuff for last. I really enjoyed the videos we did yesterday that revealed that Cable was indeed the birth child of Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor, the clone of Jean Grey. So, speaking of Cyclops and Jean Grey, let's talk about the adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. This is a 4-issue miniseries that was released in the spring of 1994, and it was totally off my radar. I think I was so knee-deep in Image Comics at this point that I had kind of forgotten about my boy Cable. But I'm really excited that here, almost 25 years later, we are able to go back and revisit this. This is a gem I discovered while I was busy hunting down some of these other issues about Cable. I stumbled across the Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, and I stumbled across the 4-issue miniseries that follows this one, which is called Askani'son. So, let me get right into this. This is written by Scott Loebdell and drawn by Gene Ha. And it obviously starts out strong because we have an advertisement for Naked Gun 33 1/3, The Final Insult, starring the lovely Leslie Nielsen. So a moment ago, Scott and Jean were getting married in the pages of X-Men number 30 and were on their honeymoon. And it was on their honeymoon that out of nowhere they were somehow transported 2,000 years into the future. Now what's waiting for them there in the future? Insanity. Absolute insanity. Apocalypse has taken over the entire world and has all humans living in serfdom beneath him. He demands that the mutant race is Homo superior and should thus be superior on this planet. And one of the first things Apocalypse does in the future is outlaw human couples from having children. Only mutants shall birth the next generation of Earthlings. So, you know, I love the art in this. It's very different. It's very unique. You can tell that Gene Ha spends a lot of time, as does Al Vey, the inker, in making this book. It also features our good friend Strife doing his thing. Oh, White Zombie, Los Ex Aristo, Devil Music Volume 1. Yes, this is the debut album from White Zombie, right here. Available at Sam Goody and Musicland. So here's Mark Bagley. That's how he got the job. Amazing Spider-Man from Big Fat Tom DeFalco. Anyway. So Jean and Scott are transported back in time while enjoying, while frolicking in the ocean waves in Bora Tora. They are transported 2,000 years into the future by Mother Askani. And who is Mother Askani? Well, it's none other than Rachel Summers, the daughter of Scott Summers. And she went into the future. This is one of the issues I did not cover. It was in an issue of Excalibur. Captain Britain was trapped in the time stream. And Rachel took his place. Saved his life and allowed him to stay here in our present time. And she was transported 2,000 years into the future, where Apocalypse has taken control of the entire world And she leads a ragtag band of female followers called the Askani, the Sisterhood of the Askani. Askani means outsider in the future. And it's exclusive to women other than a gentleman named Blacksmith, and also to the Chosen One, who is prophesied about, who will come someday to end apocalypse and save the world, and then he will go back in time and save the world some more in our time. A lot of time jumping going on in this book. But nonetheless, Rachel is basically like, this is not the last day of her life, but this is the last day of her conscious life. This is Chevere, and he is the disciple of Apocalypse, I guess you could say. He is one of the loyalists. He's very huge. He's like 10 feet tall, and he kicks a lot of butt, but he's a very conflicted character. And this is a really intense plot here. It's a lot to explain. So Rachel and Scott go forward into the future, are pulled forward into the future, but not their bodies, just their beings, their souls, their consciousness. And it's implanted into these two other bodies where they are referred to as Red and Slim. Obviously, Jean is Red and Scott is Slim. And they don't necessarily look like this. This is Cyclops right here. It doesn't necessarily look like the Scott Summers we know because it's a different body. And Jean, same way. It doesn't look like Jean, but the red hair gives it away. The hair gives it away. These are our people, right? And so basically, this is the last day of the Askani's known existence. This is like the Askani Citadel that the disciples of Apocalypse come and invade to destroy the Askani. Red and Slim show up here out of nowhere. They get Mother Askani, a.k.a. Rachel Summers, and they whisk her away to freedom. And this is blood. This is the blood of people being murdered above that's pouring down here into the subterranean level that they're on. And a lot of dialogue, a lot of story about how Apocalypse, the more powerful he gets, the more he needs to take on a new form. And so he's like constantly jumping from body to body. Not constantly, but the more powerful he gets over the next 2,000 years, he's going to have to trade bodies. And his ultimate goal is to raise strife in a wicked way, so that Apocalypse may then inhabit the body of Strife. Because he knows that Strife will be able to take him, because Strife, he believes, is the one prophesized about, who is the child of the first mutant, the first, what do they call them? The chosen parents, or the first parents, the first ones. It's a lot of dialogue. But it's a really good story. It's just, I don't need all this narration. My goodness. This picture is going to tell me everything I need to know, and maybe you could use 2 of these boxes. I don't need everything to be so poetic. Despite how great the art looks, the art is very poetic. And it speaks volumes all on its own. And as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so basically, here they are frolicking on their honeymoon when they get these mental synapses and they're sucked away into the bodies of Slim and Red. I feel like I just keep repeating myself in this video. So Chevere, wants the child, bring forth the child for Apocalypse, and go hunt down the 2 that got away and Mother Askani, who they believe is dead. And he lifts up this child. I propose an exchange, a new life for an old one. And this is actually baby Cable. He's just been pulled out. This is another interesting thing is, yesterday we watched the video where the X Factor, where they send Nathan Christopher Summers as an infant into an unknown future. Well, this is where he was pulled out, is right here. And so on this day where Red and Slim have come into the future, Cable, baby Nathan Christopher Summers has been pulled out of the incubator, right? And there's been the clone made of him, which is Strife. And he is willing to offer an exchange. He will exchange the baby, flawed, scarred, afflicted, but a human nonetheless. He's got the techno-organic virus growing out of him. It's great. For Mother Askani. And you two can leave, be on your way. This is not your fight. You're just humans. See, this is another interesting thing is they are in human bodies, and they do not have their mutant powers as of this moment. And this is all kind of, an important part of the plot that how do I explain all this? This is so much. This is a whole new world we've entered here. And humans, are basically constantly monitored. Once a year they have to return to their place of birth so that they can be counted in a sentence and scanned. Because Apocalypse is gonna make sure the human race dies out. There's not gonna be any humans left by the time he's done, only mutants. And so Scott's just like, no, take old Rachel and run. I'm gonna go save Nathan Christopher. And so Scott runs and fights, and then all of a sudden, boom, he gets his optic blast out of nowhere. And part of this story, which if you pick this up, which I recommend you pick it up, is because they're in the human bodies, they register as humans to everyone else, but they still have the ability to use their mutant powers. It's kind of interesting. And also it's just kind of glossed over, This whole world is really fleshed out well. And they basically escape, through the sewers and wash out, safe as can be. And, now we need to go. Mother Askani, she put something in her mind that they need to go back to where Slim is from. See, because it's like Quantum Leap with Scott Bakula, right? Scott Summers is leaped inside of this body, but it's still Slim's body, and Slim still was born somewhere in 2,000 years in the future, and he has to go there for the pilgrimage, right? NBA Jam, boom shakalaka, he's on fire! Okay, The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, number 2, and here we see a young Cable, right? I love this outfit. He's totally just like a Haji living in the desert, right? And they're walking, they're making the pilgrimage. All the way to this city. So this is Coast Crest. This is the city where Slim was born, where they have to return so that he can be ID'd. It's funny because, all this detail and all this story, and really, this issue is pretty unnecessary. I could have combined issue 1 and issue 2 into a single issue, and I think it would have been better. Not to say that the story's bad by any means, it's not. I'm really into it. It's just, this doesn't have a hell of a lot to do with the plot. Turn on the technology! Interactive audio CD, adventures, and a complete game, man. You see, you play the board game while you listen to the CD. How about that? And there's people, there's like people, and they have to, pretend that they're, just some shitty humans, just like he is, some crappy human. But he overhears them speaking Old English, which is the language we speak here in, the early 21st century. In the future, it would be called Old English. And he hears them speaking it, and then they switch to this telepathic connection that they have. They switch to speaking to each other through mind powers, right? And then like little Cable's just sitting here, and he's just like, oh, you two are in perpetual motion. Oh, at it again. Yeah, so here's where Apocalypse lives. He lives on the Pacific coast, so I'm guessing he lives somewhere in California, in the lap of decadence. And this is Chevere. He's got on this very regal outfit to attend the party, and he's just sick of all these people. He's sick of humans, he's sick of mutants, he's sick of everybody. And then little Strife is just like killed his tutor that was supposed to be teaching him, and Strife didn't like what he had to explain. He told me to study. I told him no. End log. Oh, total little dick. He needs a spanking. And Chavert like wants what's best for the kid. This is kind of interesting because he is a bad guy. He does work for Apocalypse, and this part's really a trip. But let me stick with Chavert. Chavert wants what's best for this boy, and he's a very conflicted character. And as this story progresses, he begins to care more and more for this boy coming up right, as opposed to the will of Apocalypse. But this little bastard, he's just a complete little tyrant. He doesn't care. He's just a murderous little bastard. And so here you have like Apocalypse's new form, and like he's just like this really old man inside of this robot body now. And he's got 2 Apocalypse heads that float at his sides at all times. And this is expressed elsewhere in this story with another character you see that has like the 2 floating heads. It's very bizarre. It's never actually explained though. But I just want, if you pick this up, be prepared for the 2 floating heads. Because at first I thought that this was like some sort of part of the architecture, and this was sculpted and painted by someone who is, Apocalypse's slave. But no, Apocalypse is just like this old decrepit man now. And it confuses me because I want to know, is Apocalypse in our time an old man in a robot too? Because I didn't ever see Apocalypse as, like a guy in a robot, like in that crappy Wolverine movie. Pure trash. But this is kind of interesting, and, ultimately, the boy is excited because he is going to get to sit on the throne of Apocalypse someday, and he doesn't realize that the old man's going to enter him. Old, dirty, decrepit Apocalypse soul is going to enter the boy, and he's cool with it, though. He can't wait for it. And Chavert, he's just conflicted about the whole thing because it's a little boy. And here, Jean is making Nathan Christopher Summers' arm, which is, he's got the techno-organic virus, and she's using her mind power to manipulate people's ability to sense it. And so they just see a normal boy's arm, and this is the only way they're going to make it through the gates. And they go through the gates, and they have problems. And see the dude, look at this. This is the one black guy. He's selling them out now. Remember, where'd they meet the black guy? See, and now he's selling them out. Can you believe this? 1 second. Look at that again. Okay, yeah, I guess that's the same hat. Okay. Yeah, he just sells them right out, Explain yourself, Joe Quesada. And Cable runs up and bites him on the knees, an ankle biter. Look at this. And they smack the kid, you dirty little bugger. And then Red's just like, all right, it's on. And they're like, whoa, you scan as a human, but you're a mutant, and we're mutants. And then this dude shows up. Now, I don't know what's going on with Gantz here, but this is Turin. And he kind of runs Border Town. Who run Border Town? Master Blaster run Border Town. Turin run Border Town. And he basically makes the save, and don't ask me to explain, like, he's techno-organic too, but it looks really stupid and weird. It's real wonky looking. Very phallic. And so he finally, bids them entry, essentially, because he's, secretly one of the good guys. And so they walk past the bad mutants who just, are low-level drones of Apocalypse. And they're like, but we've already charged our powers. And Turin's like, well, improvise. What do we do now that we've been primed? And so then they kill the guy that turned them in. Rude. Oh, Jack Kirby passed away. And the ever-loving blue-eyed thing's crying over it. I don't want to read that. That's too much of a downer for me right now. So, all this intricate artwork is just so amazing. How long it take the guy to do all that? Very impressive. So, basically they bid him entry to the underground where everybody's forced to live. And that's the first 2 issues. And honestly, this could have been 1 issue very easily. And I would have been happier not having to have read as much that wasn't necessary. But then we get to issue number 3, which is actually signed by Gene Ha. How about that? Oh, big baller. That's right. And Slim and Red basically have been... This is so fascinating. In our time, they're probably only been out of their bodies for 1 second, lying there on the beach in Bora Tora. But here they have been with Nathan Christopher Summers for the last 8 years, raising this child. Gene and Scott, inhabiting the bodies of Red and Slim, have raised Scott's child with Madeline Pryor, Jean Grey's clone. And they're just trying to train him to, you know, get control of his powers, and because she knows that someday he's going to be Cable, but she can't tell the boy that, right? And this is a very fascinating story, and I don't want to delve too much into it. But inevitably, what's going to happen is you're going to get to the Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, issue 4 of 4. And you are going to want to do this because look what's happened to our friend Cable. Little baby Nathan Christopher. There he is. All messed up. And how and why is all going to be revealed in these pages. And it's great. It was really good. This story was really good. It could have been 3 issues instead of 4, but you know, that's okay. I highly recommend you check it out. You will have an appearance by Nathan Christopher in his underwear. And that's Rachel. You know, this is the only time Rachel had a normal haircut, was they made her look kind of like the Wendy's girl. But anyway, you are going to want to see all of this. You are going to want to read this. And I don't want to give away too much of the story because I actually recommend this. And we are going to come back with the mini-series that came after this. See, at the end of this, coming fall of '95, Askani'son. And, well, it turns out that I have Askani'son. The first futuristic issue. The future history of the X-Men continues in Askani'son. A 4-issue miniseries that was promised, you know, in the fall of '95, and it actually wasn't until, well, I guess, yeah, okay, so this came out in January of '96. Well, that's the date that's printed on it, so it came out in, what, November of '95? And we're going to get into this one in the next video. But for right now, if you want to know what life was like for Cable growing up 2,000 years in the future, this is the only way to find out, is to pick up The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. I know it is available in a trade paperback, and I would recommend it. I would recommend trying to find it in the back issue bins, because I got all of this for, this was $2 total for me, 50 cents a piece. And I don't care, you know. Yeah, 50 cents, even for the one signed. That's true. No cracks in the spine even. There's a little bend up here on the corner. But, you know, I didn't buy it for that. I bought it for the story. They could have been cracked and bent all up and down the spine. I wouldn't have cared. I'm in it for the story, and I'm in it for the art, too, with this. It's very, very weird looking comic. This is not a traditional art style you see in comics in the 1990s, but they took a chance with this, with Gene Ha's incredible art, and it really did pay off really well, and it pays off even more in Askani'son. So, if you are a fan of Cable, we have definitely shown you the path here so far, and here in a little while I'll be back with the next video to cover Askani'son, and we'll have the whole story of Cable charted for you to go and find at your local comic shop. You don't have to try to figure it out for yourself. I have done the legwork for you. I've done the research for you, and it has been a pleasure to do it. So, this will #move the needle for you if you are a fan of the X-Men and Cable. So check it out, The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. And I will be back in a couple short hours to talk more about the life and times of Cable here on Testosterone Overload.